So good evening, everyone. So I would like to know where you're from. Are you all from US or are there anybody else from any other? Australia.
Canada.
Wow, wonderful. So we have Australians, Canadians and Americans. Right. So first of all, I would like to welcome you all to Medbosevana Meditation Center. So though we have the terminology being used as a meditation center, the meditation that we practice here a little bit different from other places, because what we would like to do is that we do not want to introduce you to something which is artificial, which you cannot associate to yourself when you carry out your ordinary work. So the meditation that we propose is a 24/7 method. Whatever you do should be a meditation at the end of this session. So generally how do we start this program is with the question from the audience. So I would like to invite you, if you have any questions about the philosophy of Buddhism, or maybe a question about your own mind, then you can raise that question. Based on that question, we will start the discussion. Okay? Yes.
I'm interested in the different kinds of Buddhism, maybe the different ways of meditating or what is important.
Yes. Talking about different kinds of Buddhism, you see, it is like that we have different types of religions. Now, when Buddhism was started in India, then the philosophy was taken overseas to different regions. Thailand, then it went to China, Japan, Sri Lanka. So the philosophy is the same. I mean, the spirit is the same. But it was amalgamated with the culture of each country. That is why we have different types of Buddhist practices. So do not misunderstand that the philosophy has been differed. Philosophy is one and the same, but the way we worship and how we would create the shrines and temples will be different, because we have adapted to our local culture. The Buddha statues that you have seen in Sri Lanka would not be the same in Thailand and in China. It will give you a Chinese figure, but here this is the local figure. So that's all. There's only a cultural difference. In that case you find Zen Buddhism, and in Sri Lanka you have Theravada and Mahayana and Tantrayana in Tibet. So there are different types of cultural differences. Yes.
I'm curious to how to help us. Many of us are at this point in our life. A lot of our life work is over. We've raised children. We are out to now grown families. And our life work is often done, so we're retired. And so we're looking at kinds of journeys that we need to do as we age. We become the last generation, we're the next generation to die.
Mm-hmm.
So how to look at that philosophically.
That basically what to do after the retirement. That is something that you should have planned. Yes. Yeah. Traveling, that's good. Now I'll tell you, it's a very interesting question. First of all, we have to understand, why do we seek for something to do in our life? Right? Do you know the reason for that? Now, when we were born, as infants, we didn't know anything, but we were taught, okay, you have to go to school and to have your primary education. Once you're done with your primary education, then you have to do some higher studies. Once you're done with your higher studies, then okay, you have to have a family, then raise children, then you have to educate them, you have to think about their future, and then They will have grandchildren. Now you have a duty to raise the grandchildren. And then you will end up your professional life. Then you will become a retired soul. Then again, we are seeking for something to do. If you analyze that entire picture of your entire lifespan, you will find out the best thing you should do. Because I can propose many things. But you have to find out the best thing that you have to do. For that, what Buddha proposed is that if there is a problem, do not dwell with the symptoms of the problem. You have to identify the cause, the root for that. Why do we seek for some activity in our life? The reason is this. The innate nature of the human mind is loneliness. Though we think that we have different relationships with people, it is not like that. From inside, the very nature of our mind is loneliness. It is separate from everything else. Right? But it's very difficult for one to bear that loneliness. So as kids, we did not know the gravity of being lonely. But our parents knew that. Then they advised us, you have to occupy yourself with something. They didn't know the chemistry behind it, but it was the practice of the society. So they gave us a target to achieve. First thing is the kindergarten. Secondly, the secondary education and the tertiary education, giving you targets. Then after that, you have to marry. Then after that, another target, you have to raise kids. You have to get into a job. Then you have to excel in your profession. Why are we seeking all these targets? Why do we keep us busy? Because we are afraid of that loneliness. Right. So then you have two choices in this case. First, as you have been doing so far, you can have another target in your life to escape from that loneliness. But then the problem with that is it will be a never-ending solution. Once you fulfill that target, you have to have another target. That's what you have been doing so far. But the eternal solution for that, whether you would agree or not with me, the eternal solution for that is get used to the loneliness. Be satisfied with yourself. That is where, if you have heard the term of vipassana, the mindfulness meditation, that is where it takes you. How to be satisfied with your own company, without any support from the outside world. Without getting associated with your mind with any physical things, with any relative objects. You're achieving a non-relative bliss inside. I think that would be the best retirement plan for you. Maybe that is the reason you are here today. Did you understand me?
Yes.
Okay. You can question me if there is any.
I feel that many of my friends, and include myself, are already doing a lot of that. We realize we read books, we watch TV, we enjoy clubs, all of that. Do some of that. But then all of us need that private, quiet time as well. And I find in my own life I'm adding more to it. More time to be alone, or to just think, than I ever did when I was younger.
Well, when I say the word loneliness, do not misunderstand that with being inactive. It is not a lethargic life or a sedimentary life. I'm not proposing you to be a vegetable. Right. You're active as usual. But being lonely means that you do not pawn your satisfaction, happiness to any other thing. That means you're untouched. Whatever you do, you're untouched from your own activities. Your inside is untouched from all the things around you. That you do your perform your responsibilities to your children, to your grandchildren, or to your employees, to your neighbors, to your relatives, and you do your activities and your duties towards the society. You are doing everything possible within your capacity, but from inside you're untouched. How do you do that?
Spend time by yourself.
No. Yeah, this is the way you do that. So you have been touched by all those externalities because of a very simple reason. You have been doing everything in your life with expectations. You have gone to school with the expectation of learning, been excelling in one subject. You raise kids with the expectation of that they will be good people, good citizens. You're doing a contribution to the society with the expectation of this contribution will help to overcome their poverty, to overcome the hunger in Africa, to overcome the racial discrimination in so and so country. With expectation. Doing activities with expectation. There's a problem in that. Once you do anything with expectation, if the expectation comes true, you will be happy. Even though you are happy, your mind is touched by something beyond your control. Whether your activity will be successful or not will depend on different things. What you can do is just the performing the task. But whether the expectation will succeed will depend on other external things. So once you give that some part of your happiness to be controlled by externalities, even though you are happy, you have been touched. Right? And or else, if your expectation does not come true, then what will happen? You will be sad. In that case, definitely you know that you are touched. So when you do any sort of activity in your life with an expectation, that means you leave a ground your inside to be touched. So what I propose here is that do everything within your capacity, what is possible, but do not expect anything in return. That means, okay, you're doing a propaganda to overcome poverty in Sri Lanka, in rural regions in Sri Lanka. You do it. You do everything. You do the meetings, you gather funds, and you go to reach the people, community people, and you spread whatever the message and the donations. But whether the poverty will be eradicated, it is something beyond your control. But you are doing everything which is possible. So you are disassociating your activity from the expectation. That is the loneliness that I am talking about. Then which one is lonely? Your inside is lonely. It is untouched. But you are doing everything. But you are untouched. Yes.
If I understand that correctly, then in my way of thinking, if I do something to the best of my ability and not be too upset about the outcome or happy about the outcome, I know I've done my best, whatever happens, happens. Is that the same kind of thing? If I know that I did something and I didn't try very hard, then I'm more disappointed in myself. But if I know I tried my best and it's not successful, I don't feel unhappy.
Well, I will expand that even to the moment where you did not try hard. You did something. Right? Even doing something without giving the full effort is an activity. You have to think about the expectation in that also. Because if you leave that part out, once you have performed your best in your best capacity, then okay. But if you have not given the full attention, you will be definitely upset. Don't let that happen to yourself, because in that moment you are touched. You are not in the loneliness. This word loneliness, you can refer it to something, another nice term, rather than using loneliness. If you can see there is a poster there, inscription, say noble silence. I think you won't be able to see the front row people. That is noble silence. That is what noble silence means. The untouched mind. Your mind is in silence. Right? So whether you give the full effort or not, you understand if you keep an expectation, you will be touched. How you will be touched? If the expectation come true, you will be happy. You are not at noble silence. If your expectation has not been come true, you will be sad. You are not at noble silence.
It's very difficult for me to imagine not believing that I should
Yes.
try my best.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Don't imagine about it. Because that is the theory. But how to do it, the practical part is different. In the practical part, you do not think about it. You do not try to become the noble silence. What happens if you try to become a noble silence? You have an expectation. In order to achieve the noble silence, an untouched mind, you're having another expectation. I think that is the worst expectation one can have. Because now let's say you want to develop Africa, Ethiopia. Now if you fund that country, if you do some social service, you can do a research and collect data and see how successful you are in your endeavor. You know, if the gross domestic production has increased, it can be evaluated. Right? If the people are not starving, it can be evaluated. Whether they are not malnourished can be evaluated. But this state of mind is something which you cannot evaluate. It is not physical. Right? You cannot perceive it. It is intangible, non-physical. If you keep a non-physical thing, intangible thing as an expectation, that is the worst thing that you can have. Because you never know whether you have succeeded it or not. So, though the theory is that, the practical part is, you do not try to be that. Then what do? You just live your life. And understand the secrets of your mind. How do you do that? By way of discussion. That is how you make your life 24/7 meditation, and you're not doing anything artificial, you're not introducing anything artificial to your life. Because I know in your life you have 100 odd things to do. I know you don't have time to sit and meditate. Even though if you start it, you cannot continue it. It will be really hard for somebody who lives a worldly life to do that. But the best way and the only way to achieve it is just live your life as usual. But be in the discussion where you have been taught, you have been enlightened about the chemistry of your own mind. Because your mind creates expectations and you get attached to those expectations because of the misunderstandings that you have in your mind. Do you understand? And I know for a beginner, they will think how to do something without having much expectations. It is not something that you can think about. Because you have been trained to do things with expectations for many years. You have been trained by the society, by your parents, by your teachers. Now this is a reverse process. It will take some time to reverse the way of your thinking. But definitely it can be achieved.
What would be a small step to take to go on that journey?
The small step that you can take there is the understanding what the judgments and the expectations, whatever the thought that been produced by your mind, is not the reality. That is the first step you have to take. That is the correct view one should have. What you see is, I will tell you, I'm giving an example. Now let's say, now you're on a tour. How long is this tour? It has been 2 weeks. Now you have paid some money to a company and you have expectations about the services should be provided by the so-called company and by your, where is your guide? He is missing. Right, that's okay. Now you have expectations because I think definitely you might have paid good enough of money for this tour. But now you keep expectations, right? You might think, okay, the Marriott should be like this. When I reach Marriott, people should welcome me with a welcome drink. And I should be given a wet towel to wipe my face. And I should be accompanied, my luggage should be carried by the room bellboy to my room. All these expectations are in your head. Who creates these expectations? Your mind. With what details that these expectations been created? From the actual details. Have you ever been to Marriott in Sri Lanka? No. These data is from somewhere else. Maybe a hotel, you're from Australia, from Melbourne. A hotel from Melbourne. Crown, from Crown, right? I have been there once. So, then your mind generates all these expectations, thoughts, judgments from the data it already has, from previous experience, not from the real-time experience that you get from Marriott Valigama. So you should have the understanding, okay, I can think of many things to happen once I reach the hotel. Yes, but either it can happen or either it may not happen. Because I am not processing the real data. The only moment where you can process the actual data is that in the time when you step into Marriott. From the time you step into Marriott, then you can process whatever you want. Before that, you were in a dream world. You were in Melbourne Marriott. So that is the first step you have to understand. Now you might have had a lot of expectations when you reach this place. Okay, I should be given a task to close my eyes, place my hand like this, cross my legs, and I should be chanting Om. I'm not going to do anything at all. I'm 100% sure you might not have had even dreamt of a session like this. I do not want you to meditate until the end of this discussion. This is the only meditation you are going to have with me, discussing. If you had something in your head, that is some old data you have been processing so far. I am not responsible for old garbage that you process.
What about, I do want to keep, for a normal person, it's just normal to keep expectation, but I do not affect by whatever the end result. I think that's possible for us normal people.
Yes, if you are not affected by the end result, that's the noble silence I'm talking about. For that, you should understand this.
But I do keep my expectation.
Yes,
I have a lot of
that's possible. That's possible. Now, you have to understand. Now, that is the practical way of doing that. Keep expectations. Keep expectations about Marriott. Keep expectations about flight. Keep expectations about what you're going to do there. Right? Don't try to change your life, way of your thinking. Right? But you study this little bit. This is the exercise. Now let's say you're going back to Marriott with the expectation of having a proper dinner. right? You should expect everything because you have paid for it. Once you go there, there's nothing much to it. Right? So then, what will happen to your mind if the expectation has not come true?
I'm indifferent to that.
If it is, then it's okay. If somebody is different for that, if somebody's mind is not settled with that situation, then you have to observe, okay, my mind is not settled. What is the reason for that? The reason is that I had an expectation, I did not understood the fact that it may come true or may not come true in the real time scenario. Because when I was creating the expectation, I did not have the real time data. I was processing with the old data.
Either way is fine.
Yes. Do you understand? Yes. What you have to understand is that you think the data inside your mind is real. But that is your past. That is not your present. That is not your future. What we do, even what I do from my mind, is just processing some old data. It's like a recycling process inside. Have you seen these, what you call that, concrete mixer machines? It just mix all the way up to the site. It just mix from the plant to the site. It's been keep on mixing. What you are doing 24/7 is like that from your mind. Mixing your old data. What is the disadvantage of that? You will miss the bliss of the present moment. Now just, you may have a lot of problems in your family or in your professional life, back in America, back in Canada, back in Australia. You may have a lot of problems. That is the life, right? Even I have problems. But at this present moment, has this nature had done any injustice to any one of us? Don't we feel the same breeze? Don't we hear the same calls of birds? Don't you observe the same greenery? All of us? What is the problem that you have with the data in this present moment? Nothing. But you can go back to your problems once you start to recycle your old data. Yes.
So, talking about expectations, when we take any step, like making plans for a trip like this, we have some expectations. So, if we try not to have any expectations, how do we select the next step, whether it's this trip or another trip? How do we do that?
That's a good question. That's why I told you, though I say in theory, the part is not to have expectations, but in practical aspects, it is not that. In practical life, you should have expectations. It is not, I'm not going to put your mind into a coma where it does not create any thought. It will create expectations, but you are enlightened about the mind after this spiritual practice. Whatever the expectation being created by my mind, two things is possible. There's always a duality. Either my expectation might come true or might not come true. If you further go into the chemistry of it, you will know why, what is the reason for that. I created the expectation with the old data set, not with the current data. Do you understand? So, you have to plan. I have to plan. You have to keep expectations. I have to keep expectations. The only thing that we have to do apart from that is increasing the level of our understanding and decrease the level of our misunderstanding. About what? About the chemistry of our mind. That's all. Do you know? Then you will end up with a mind where you can create thousands of millions of expectations. But your mind itself will have a mechanism to understand, to realize the nature of which has been created. Do you understand? It is a natural process. It's not artificial.
Are you talking about your emotional reaction to things? And like if something has gone very, very wrong, you can either become very angry, very stressed, abusive, and which are negative feelings, which actually can downgrade the way you feel about yourself, about your life, about your family. It's actually sort of a view, a lens of looking at things and not going, I suppose, using your emotion in a positive way.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not in a positive way, but not becoming reactive to things.
Emotionally numb.
Yes.
No.
Not emotionally numb,
Yeah.
but sort of looking at things and saying, well, what's the use of getting angry? All it does is make you feel upset.
Okay, I'll start from the last point. What's the importance of being angry? Now, okay, let's say I have an employee under me. I employed him to perform a particular task and I pay him for that. He's not performing the task. The first instance, I kindly say, don't do that, do it this way. Even the second instance, he's not doing it. I say, don't do that. This is the way you have to perform. Give some assistance. You're doing it kindly. But fourth and fifth time, he is not doing the job. Are you going to keep on kindly addressing him? You have to put some pressure on him. There is a point where you have to do that. Let's say you have a mischievous child. To rectify his errors, to get himself into the social order, you have to show some phrase. Do you know? That is where the anchor is important. Right? I am not proposing where you basically a person without emotions. Now you have to realize there's a subtle message here. Now, let's say since morning up to now, we had a different array of emotions, right? In the morning, you might have been so fresh, or maybe you have been really upset. I don't know. So sometimes after you are happy, then again angry, then envy, then lust, then jealousy. So it's a sequence of emotions throughout this time. Did you get the emotion artificially, or did it just pop up naturally? Just think about your life and see. Did it just come with the situation, or are you just thinking and getting angry? Are you just thinking and create an envy? Are you just thinking and artificially creating jealousy? Or is it happening naturally? How does the emotion flow happens? Is it natural or artificial?
I mean, I'm thinking in my head at the moment, if you have a pet that you love and the pet dies, you will naturally feel sad. That's the word I want. Yes. You will naturally feel sad. Yes. You will naturally feel happy. You will naturally feel lust. You will naturally feel jealousy. It's a natural phenomenon. Yes. So, if something is natural, right, that means it is not artificial. It is not something that we can reject. Now let's say, even tomorrow morning, the sun will rise from east and it will set from west. It's a natural process. There's no point of rejecting it. There's no point of worrying about it. Though we think today, no, the sun should rise from west, it will never happen. Because natural things happens as the way it wants, as the way the nature wants. Now you can see the beach from your room, from Marriott. You can see the sea waves. Can you stop those sea waves from your bare hands? No. Why? It's natural. If something is natural, it cannot be corrected. You might do some temporary measure, but it won't be an eternal stop for that. So all these emotions are natural. So there's no problem with anger. There's no problem with lust. There was no problem with happiness and
sad. Then what's the problem here? The problem is, once you have a misunderstanding about your emotion, you try to accept a set of emotions and try to reject the rest. You're creating a differentiation between something natural. Then what is the disadvantage of that? Then if you reject something which you cannot stop, which is a natural phenomenon, definitely some resistance is going to happen. Resistance. When you have resistance, what you have? The energy will be wasted as heat. That is why you feel a burning sensation when you have anger. It is not because of anger, because from your inside you have a misunderstanding that anger should be rejected.
I do not understand. If you can follow Mark's example, his dad just passed away.
Yeah.
He was very emotionally involved.
Yes, I will tell you.
What is the
Yeah.
understanding?
Now when your Mark, right? If I'm right. When Mark's pet has died,
Right.
he feels sad. It's natural. It's natural. But you feel something inside. That means you're touched from inside with the emotion. You're touched and your energy being wasted because you repel that emotion. You reject that emotion. You do not accept it. Now when a funeral happens, right, you might have seen people cry over weeks. But after some time, they come to the ordinary state. What is the reason for that? For weeks, they have been rejecting what has happened. They have been rejecting the emotions which have been generated inside. But after 2 weeks, they have accepted it naturally. Now they are not crying. That is what happens. So you can do the same thing at the very moment it happens. You cannot do it artificially. But if you understand the chemistry of the mind, that is the point where you're going to have. The time that your mind will take either to accept or reject an emotion will be diminished. So the emotion will flow. Yes.
So Mark was upset for 1 whole week, and then he gradually quiet himself down. He accepted this one. So in your case, you probably upset just for 1 minute.
Maybe not even for a second, or maybe it depends, right? I'm not proposing what will happen in the next moment. That's something that you have to see when it happens. What I say is that the reason for that energy waste inside you is that you have a distinction between emotions. You have categorized those emotions into 2 boxes. One set of emotions bad, one set of emotions good. That discrimination has created this issue. Now this is something I know it's maybe a little bit different to understand, but once you realize the chemistry of mind, you will see the entire chemistry, entire rhythm of the mind is natural. What we try to do is we try to go against that natural process. That is where all the problem has started.
So why don't you accept that 1 week emotion involved, that's normal? Why you wanted to accelerate that period? Why you want to
Accelerate.
Yeah, why you wanted to accelerate? Because that's a normal emotion that week. It's
I get the point.
We should get involved.
Yeah.
But eventually, naturally, I get over that process. But why you suggest we reduce that process and to skip that process?
No, I'm not suggesting to skip the process. I'm not suggesting to reduce the time of the emotion. The emotion will be there. Only the rejection will go from inside. Now I know this is something where you have not experienced. The anger is a tool. because it's a natural thing, right? But once you have a discrimination or rejection in your mind, the anger will create distress, anxiety and everything inside you. Anger is not there to have that. Anger is a tool. Sadness is a tool. So it will last as long as it wants. But you're untouched from inside. The emotion will go, but from inside you're untouched. Yes, I know. That is because we are talking about a result. This is something we have to practice. Actually, the practice in the sense, master the chemistry of the mind. Because all these repulsions, rejections, tension, anxiety being created inside our mind because the misunderstanding that we have about the process of the mind. It happens gradually. It won't happen overnight. I will tell you the reason for that now. Since our childhood, if you just recall the things that you studied, what we have been focused on was external things, physics, chemistry. Chemistry of what? Chemistry of objects outside, physics of the machinery outside, stars, galaxies, maths, history, all those things are external things. We have not given any attention to understand the chemistry of our own mind. There wasn't a subject for that. But it has a huge chemistry inside. The huge secrets, a number of secrets inside. Basically what I say, there is a user manual for this system. But we have not studied it. If you use some technological device without reading the user manual, what will happen? You will hamper the device. Or you might not be able to use it in its full potential. Now this recorder, it has a lot of options, but I know only few things. Just to switch some things and switch particular channels and to control the gain and to press the record button and to stop. That's all I know. But it has many options. Why don't I know? I haven't read the user manual. Right? So even in your mind, the mind has different tools. Emotions are the tools of the mind. We work with emotions. We are emotional beings. Emotions are the tools of the mind, but we have not read the user manual. Because of that, the emotions are giving trouble to us.